Hello, my name is Cynthia. I thank you for clicking on this video. I'm here today to talk about my cross stitch. In particular, I'm going to go over the projects that I've stitched on over the last 7 days in participation with the Stitch Mania Challenge. I chose to stitch for the 31 days of May, whereas a lot of people have finished on the 19th for 2019. And there have been some good and bad experiences I've had this month that I will share as I go through my project. So let's go ahead and get started. On the 14th, I left you with the Victorian Sampler Farm, Old MacDonald, and I didn't get as much time to stitch on this as I hoped, but I did enjoy it. The confetti around the barn there I put in took a little bit of time because it is like confetti. It's very detailed on the chart, and I'm going to be putting some French knots on top of that grass and finishing the barn with just some DMC and some weeks. Oscar is the grass. So enjoy that piece very much. This is what it's going to look like when it's finished. And I already have a finishing idea that involves a shadow box and some old farm records from my grandparents' farm. So look forward to getting back to that. I am enjoying it. It does take time because it is so detailed, but it's not very big. So that was day 14. On day 15, I stitched on the Prairie Schooler piece called Prairie Seasons, and didn't get a ton done on this. It was such a busy week last week. But I did wanted to show this because sometimes we think pieces are really, really large or really, really small, and they're the opposite. And on 36 count, this is the one I was working on here. This is going to be pretty tiny, as you can see. But I said I wasn't going to change any of the colors, and as I got into it, I realized that the barn is actually one of these mustard colors. And I would rather have the barn be red, so I did pick up or add in this brick color from Weeks Dye Works. It's called Brick. So I will be changing the barn to be more red instead of the mustard. But I just love those colors. Those are going to be the same colors for all 4 of the seasons. So autumn is going to be my next focus, probably in the next month or so. So really enjoyed that stitch. It's very well charted. It's my first Prairie Schooler that I've ever stitched on, so I really enjoyed that. The next piece is one that has been kind of a intimidation to me. This is my first Mirabilia that I've ever stitched. I picked it out for my eldest daughter who likes Alice in Wonderland because I thought it looked kind of along those lines. And I was commenting on Lady Bird Stitcher, her name's Lorna, on her side that I was really intimidated by the Mirabilias and that I just hadn't put the work in yet, and she encouraged me. It's just cross stitch. You know, take your time with it and don't give up. So I appreciate that. This is her face. It's kind of hard to tell. But I worked on some blended threads there on her cheek. And I do want to do as Johnny does, Y-A-N-A, Johnny from Mexico. I love her Mirabilias. These are 2-sided. She likes to do the face first, so that it kind of has a little bit of a personality as you're looking at the face and working on it. Instead of a whole bunch of colors, you start to see that face emerge and kind of want to see what she's going to look like. So I will pick this back up probably on June 4th, which is my eldest daughter's birthday. So kind of got over some nerves with that and just dove in. I didn't have enough time, but I'm feeling more confident in trying it again. So that was a good outcome for Mania, that I tackled something that was intimidating me. Another piece that's not intimidating at all, super cute, by Barbara Anna. This is from a magazine, Primitive Needle, Punch Needle, Primitive Stitcher. I always get that so wrong, sorry. So it's kind of crinkly paper here, sorry, but she is just a cute little mouse. And she's charted in DMC, but kind of against what I usually do, going from hand-dyed to DMC. I'm going from DMC to hand-dyed because I didn't have the DMC. So these are some Weeks Dye Works and Primitive, what's that one called? Pioneer Spice by Victorian motto. And this is a piece I hand dyed. I initially started stitching on my Plum Street piece and didn't care for it, but for a Halloween piece, this blue-gray kind of smoky sky I thought was very fitting. So that was really fun, and I like the way that that's turning out. That's part of my Stitch 9 challenge, so I don't see any problems in getting that done before the end of the year. On the 20th, oh, the 18th, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself, I pulled out a sampler that has been a favorite, and it's just such a beautiful piece. Sarah Woodham by the Shakespeare's Peddler. And I was going back and watching some Kitten Stitcher from last year when I was a brand new stitcher and getting a lot more out of it now than I've been stitching for a year. So it was funny, she had mentioned this piece and showed the original. This is the oldest sampler that she's ever reproduced. And I thought it was funny that it's going to be 250 years old next year. So I might push for a finish for 2020 so that it's on the 250th year anniversary of this piece being stitched. It's very pretty. And I had already stitched up halfway before when I had run out of fabric, so this is a familiar border and pretty simple really. The over one verse I'm a little bit nervous about, but the rest of it is turning out to be really doable. And that's one of the negatives though on Stitch Mania is I just really didn't want to stop. When you're having to switch projects every day, it can be a little bit frustrating because I'm just kind of getting into a groove and it's like, okay, time to stop. But that was one of the drawbacks that I wanted to point out in my experience. The other thing I worked on, and I'm not going to pull it out because unfortunately I had a really bad day with this one. My Village of Hawk Run Hollow, I am working on the third block, and everything I did on this day of Stitch Mania I had to pull out. So I hadn't done a ton. I had stitched an entire window and a roof line, and I was off half a stitch on the top, and I stitched the window in the wrong color. So kind of a cautionary tale. I had not been labeling my threads very well. I had just thrown them in a bag and I pulled out the wrong thread. When you have this many colors in a piece, it's really important to have your threads labeled, obviously. So just a reminder to be more careful, and I'm ready to get back to it. I hope to show you more progress at the end of the month since this is kind of my focus piece that I work on first thing in the morning. So nothing to show that wasn't pulled out today, but hopefully by the end of the month. A piece I started on the 20th that I was really excited about. Sorry, I always pick it upside down. If there's a way to go 50-50, I pick upside down. The Redbird Fraktur has a nest in the center, and I decided to start on that just to make sure I had the fabric right because I'm a little bit close on the edges. And I also wanted to try recharting those eggs, which I'll show you. It's kind of hard to see them. They're going to be outlined and filled in with another color so they'll stand out. But I thought I could kind of freehand those eggs or free stitch those eggs and make them into a group of 4. And unfortunately I got them too high. So I'm trying to debate, am I going to move those down or are they okay? And I love the colors on the nest. And the flower I was sort of debating on. I'm not using the charted colors all the way on this. I am using the Valdani bricks. They're kind of a rusty red. And that pink on that flower, I was a little afraid, maybe you can tell from a distance, might be too pink. Let me know if you have an opinion. But I also had another, this one right here, this Victorian motto sampler. It has kind of 2 strands of colors. It's called Rosehip. I might use the lighter of those instead of that pink. But I didn't want it to go too orange. I really like the brick kind of reds. So really enjoying that stitch and looking forward to getting back to that one. It's not very large, so that should be very doable. The other one I started on the 21st was Mill Hill Main Street. It's an ice cream shop, and part of the benefits of Mania that I found is I really feel like I would have put this up for a long time and thought this is too hard. The threads are just in one big rope. They're all mixed together and it just looks really detailed, which it is, but I took the time to go ahead and make one of these cards of floss, kind of like Jen from Quirks and Stitches. And I was also wondering, you know, how are you going to know what thread is what? It doesn't have any label on it, but it was pretty clear, you know, light purple, light pink. I was able to tell what they intended. And the design was not as hard as I had feared. I really had fun stitching this last night. That's the porch. And it has a lot of details. I think it's going to be one that you kind of can view better from a distance because it has like shadowing and shading. And so it was a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. And this was the Ada that I hand dyed myself. I don't think I pointed that out last time. This is a 16-point Ada. Sometimes it's a lot more affordable if I wanted to do, like this piece is going to be, you know, pretty long. If I had gotten this in linen, I could have spent, you know, like $30, $40, but I was able to spend about 10 on the Ada. And with the over dyed swirls on it, I don't think it is as obvious that it's an Ada. And it's easier to work on with beading. So I had reserved judgment to decide if I wanted to complete the rest of this row of houses. Kind of a spring Main Street with a quilt shop and a tea room and things like that. But I do think I will want to because I've really had fun with that. And I love those colors. This will probably go in my 5-year-old's room. I think it'd be really pretty for a little girl. So that was day 21 yesterday, and today I started just briefly on, I still have it upside down, the Workbasket Yellow House. This was such a fun color palette to me. I love red, and it has the yellow and the blue and the green, and I decided to stitch this in silk just to try out the hand dyed by Rolanda, and these are only $3 silks, so I didn't feel like it was as much of a burden just to get a couple of them. It's going to be DMC as well, but I started on the green border, and I hope to get back to this later tonight. I don't know if you can see that. I wanted to get to the yellow because I'm anxious to see how that turns out, and the teal, but just a really pretty color scheme and a really neat antique piece. So that will be finished up today, or the work on that will be done today. Finally, I'd like to take a minute to remind you of our upcoming SAL. I'm co-hosting with Kim Goldman of Instagram and Socks for Mom, Becky, on YouTube. The Birds of a Feather Stitch Along, we're going to call it BBD Bird Sal for Blackbird Design Bird Sal. It can include any Blackbird design that has a bird on it if you don't have this particular design. I saw Carol of Saltbox Stitcher had just had this framed and finished. If you haven't caught her latest video, you can see it there. It's very pretty and very unique. And it was found in Texas, where I'm from, where I'm living. So another motivation. So that's coming July 13th. If you have an opportunity to pick this up, or if you would like to participate, I would love to have you stitching along with us. I'd also like to kind of preview, I'm sitting in front of a new backdrop. This is kind of my cross stitch cabinet that, or hutch that I've been organizing and put together and putting together. And I would like to start a series of videos in June kind of about some cross-stitch organization, about pretty cross-stitch organization, which is harder to do. So just a kind of sneak peek of that. I will be detailing more of the details behind me in an upcoming series of videos. So comment below if you would like to stitch along with us on the Blackbird Design Bird Sal, the BBD Bird Sal, and if you have any experiences from MAYNIA that you'd like to share, good, bad, ugly, I'd love to hear about it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.